Massively multiplayer online role-playing games, or what are better known as MMORPGs, have been around the video game industry for over 20 plus years now. And within the last 20 years, it is without a doubt that the players of the genre have experienced many fond memories, as well as have countless stories, some infamous,
Oh my god, he just ran in.
and some which still remain untold. However, this story has to do with a single journey, one that involves an airship, a looming threat, and albeit for a short time, camaraderie. Not many years after the turn of the century did the MMORPG boom take place, and while in the modern era, the quote-unquote Big Five, which is a loose term to designate the most popular games in the genre, consisting of Black Desert Online, Final Fantasy XIV, World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, and lastly, The Elder Scrolls Online, there was a time when MMORPGs were a dime a dozen. However, not all managed to stand the test of time. Notwithstanding, MapleStory, alongside games like RuneScape, World of Warcraft, and a few select others did manage to stick around in one way, shape, or form. And in light of that fact, those legacy games in the genre hold a rich history, as they have expanded and evolved over time. However, as an ode to the days of old, it would only be fitting to travel back down memory lane to the year 2005, and reminisce about a trip many took for granted, but in hindsight, was much more than just a journey through the clouds. Prior to journeying over to Ossyria, the second continent of the Maple world, we first need to speak to its main continent's significance, Victoria Island. Home to 4 major towns, 1 small port town, and a vast dark swamp with a mysterious cave in its center, in the early days it could be said that Victoria Island was MapleStory. Other than the tutorial of the game, which occurs on a small island dubbed Maple Island, players could only traverse around Victoria Island, which is where they would make their decision on which job or role they wanted to take on. Before getting to know the major towns, there are 2 areas in the game which are not tied to any specific class. The first is Lith Harbor, the port town which homes arrivals from Maple Island as a welcome to Victoria Island, and the second being Sleepywood, a seemingly silent place deep within the swamps, leading to a massive cave which only gets colder the further it is explored, culminating at an ancient temple which has since been cursed. However, with those 2 independent areas aside, the 4 major towns in Victoria Island consist of Hennessy's, Kerning City, Perion, and Elenia. Hennessy's, the home of the Archer, is a neat and friendly destination, as well as one of the largest towns in Victoria Island. And although never made official, the town seemed to be a central hub for players, acting as a pseudo-capital city in the world of MapleStory. Kerning City, the home of the Thief, is arguably the antithesis of Hennessy's, as it's a gritty urban city filled with broken down construction sites, a subway system run down by monsters, graffiti in every corner, overall encompassing a sense of being rough around the edges to say the least. Perion, the home of the warrior, is the oldest of the 4 major towns, as it is located at the top of a high plateau with the dry and rocky terrain surrounding it, as well as an excavation site being researched for clues regarding its history. Elenia, the home of the magician, and the final major town, is the most nature-filled area located at the top of a green tropical forest, said to be constructed out of light, resulting in the trees growing to a tremendous height. It is also the town which houses the gateway that bridges the 2 major continents, Victoria Island and Ossyria. Before fast travel items and navigation portals were added to the game, and became more so the norm for traveling, moving around the Maple world was a chore to say the least. Taxi cabs would only take you to major towns, only thieves and magicians could use skills like haste and teleport to make traversing on the ground a little quicker, but as a rule, traveling on foot was the only option, and a slow one at that. In a fitting fashion, when MapleStory debuted the Ossyrian continent, traveling over to it was no hop, skip, and a jump away. It required roughly a 20-minute wait, as travelers would have a 4-minute window to board the airship in Elenia station once it had arrived, and another 15-minute wait on the ride inside of it. Once aboard, travelers could choose to either wait on the deck, stay inside the cabin, or go to the lower exterior platform, which holds the ship's powered crystal. However, more often than not, low-level travelers would opt to stay inside the cabin, as it is both the safest and surest way to guarantee arrival at Orbis. In hindsight, For travelers inside the cabin, the 15-minute ride served as the exact concept of the term MMO. It led to strangers with different paths and goals to spend some time focusing on the peer-to-peer aspect of the game, as opposed to the usual grind and quest gameplay loop. With over 15 minutes to spare, travelers would often spend that time talking, playing mini-games, making friends, as well as telling stories. The ride provided a break from the main focus of the game, giving players a nice change of pace. However, the ride to Orbis also came with its own occupational hazards. In the case no connection issues arise, the reason most would spend their time hiding in the cabin was due to the fact that a certain pirate ship would make it a habit to attack travelers attempting to make it over to the Osirian continent. This occurrence wasn't always guaranteed to happen, however when it did, travelers would be made known right away, as not only the visual cue of the pirate ship appearing out of thin air, beginning to overtake a portion of the airship's deck, but also a distinct musical change would take over the map, letting everyone know that the Crimson Balrog has arrived. Even now in the modern age of the game, Crimson Balrogs are not foes to take lightly, as they can still pose a threat to travelers not ready for their attack. However, in the days of old, the Crimson Balrog was by far the strongest monster in the game, often needing a party involving at least a warrior and a healer to defeat. The ride could be completed without ever going near the Crimson Balrogs, which were hijacking the exterior of the ship. However, it was almost always guaranteed on every ride for someone to try their luck in defeating the major threat, and while many did succumb, few did prevail. In the chance that the Crimson Balrogs were ineffective in their attempt to disrupt the traveler's journey, as well as after everyone on board said their pleasant goodbyes, the airship should have touched Osirian ground, landing in the City of Clouds, Orbis. Orbis, albeit having its own attractions, with an interesting story behind it all, neighbored some of the more unique locations in the game, specifically an icy village located in the mountains, as well as a city below it, which is entirely submerged. Nonetheless, the Cloudy City would become the first area travelers would be accustomed to seeing upon leaving Victoria Island. Yet, Orbis would also serve as a hub for all intercontinental travel, and as MapleStory continued to expand over the years, Orbis was a conduit to it all. In conclusion, the ride to Orbis, while seemingly arbitrarily long at the time, definitely served its purpose. It not only signified a new beginning, as players would finally be able to explore outside of Victoria Island, but it also reminded players of the reason why the game was meant to be experienced with other people, something perhaps lost on the game in its later years. Ultimately, be it laughing inside the cabin or fighting the Balrogs outside of it, the time spent on the airship was a great reminder for why MMORPGs can be so special. The journey, while sustainable as just an individual, was often made even better when accompanied by others.